So today is the 16th of March of 2026. We are in the National Theatre with Tony Cealy in here, and the interviewer is Udane. So today we are in here because we want to know a bit about you, and we would like to know in what you are involved.
Sure. So, I'm Tony Cealy. I'm a creative practitioner, theatre maker, community artist, and ex-performer. So, where do we begin? I suppose how I got involved in border crossings?
Yeah.
So, I came across border crossings, it feels like a couple of decades ago, a long time ago, but never found a way to connect in some way. And I'd always see events and workshops and performances and things being promoted by border crossings. But like I said, I couldn't find a way to connect with them. And at some point, I saw that the festival was on, where they invite many people from around the world and many different artists to come and celebrate and share their culture around some of the issues that they are facing in their own country. And the event enables people from the UK to come and see this amazing work by different artists. And so when I saw that event, if I remember, because I think it's every 2 years they run the event, and I must have emailed or phoned or got in touch and said, look, I want to volunteer at the next forthcoming event. And luckily for me, they got back to me and said, yeah, come down and meet the team, and which I did. And I had a wonderful time meeting all of the team and Michael and all the other participants. And from what I remember, I'm trying to remember the very first one. I think it might have been up at the Burnie Grant Centre in Tottenham, but I can't be sure. But anyway, I really loved what the whole event was, because it was an opportunity to learn around different artists who were coming from around the world and their culture and their the challenges that they're facing within their heritage and their society and their neighbourhoods. And it was a wonderful way to share the art. And I just thought there's nothing like this at all. And that's why I loved the border crossings events, particularly the festival. And so every 2 years I would give up my time and volunteer, because it was just a great way to be amongst such an amazing group of people and learn about lots of different culture and find opportunities to do other kind of things, which I always love doing. So yeah.
That's really interesting. And when it comes to those events, I would like to know a bit more about what made you change when it comes to your approach in theatre, when it comes to Origins, the festival, the one that is the play that was called Almighty Boys, and his wife. Were you there? That wasn't the one.
I don't
remember that.
I don't remember that one. No.
It's okay. If you want.
What was it about?
So it was about this festival that it was in a way involving First Nation.
Yes.
People, let's say, and they were using indigenous creative, artistic ways to express themselves.
Yeah.
It was the first one in London. So I was curious about what you learned from this festival. Not necessarily that play, but the festival itself, because...
Yeah, well, I mean, when I went to the border crossings festivals, it was always an amazing time because you would meet a whole range of artists and performers from around the world. And they would share with you performances, but also they would run workshops afterwards or before. And that, for me, was a wonderful insight into their world, their experiences, and their creativity. And that's why I go, because I just find it really fascinating, and it's a great insight. I don't think I could get that anywhere else on that kind of level where there are so many creative people and they are sharing these experiences with you. And so for me, I suppose it just makes me aware of the current climate that these artists are trying to do their work and the barriers that they're facing in their lives. And it brings it home, even though I'm not in their country, but when they come to the UK and perform and do workshops, I get a chance to learn much more firsthand about the struggles, about the barriers, the obstacles that they're facing, and ways to mobilize other communities into a sense of community, which we here in the UK, we can contribute and help support these artists with their struggles. And for me, that's very, very important, not only to do the workshops, but to learn how we can contribute to learning about them, and to find ways that we can join in with the struggle, essentially.
And now talking about the struggle and our community, I think it would be really interesting if you give us more insight about your work, that you did do a bit with border crossings when it comes to Brixton and the history of Brixton and the 40th anniversary of the Brixton uprising. Would you like to go through that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. In 1981, between the 10th and the 12th of April, there was an uprising in Brixton involving the black community and the police, and many other communities were involved in that struggle, that uprising. But as a young person, age 16, I was involved in that particular social movement that took place in Brixton, and it was basically around the injustices that some of the young people and the black community felt against the police at that time, because up until that point there had been a series of events that had broken the links between the community and the police. Prior to the uprising in April 1981, the black community went on a march in March 1981 because of earlier that year there was a horrific murder of 13 teenagers in New Cross, which correlates to the New Cross fire. And at that time, it was the first time that 20,000 people from the community took to the streets to help mobilize and fight back against the fascists and the police, and to try to get a sense of the injustice that had happened to them. And so in April 1981, Brixton caught on fire because the local community had enough of the brutalization from the police and the way that they were treated. And I was involved in that uprising as a young 16-year-old, throwing petrol bombs at the police and generally being a troublemaker. And that incident has always stayed with me every part of my life. And in when was it? It was, I'm just trying to remember, in 2020, I had an idea that it would be great to commemorate the 1981 Brixton uprisings for its 40th anniversary. And I really wanted to find a way to mobilize all of the community to celebrate this amazing event and commemorate it. And in 2020, I knew that I had, sorry, not 2020, my figures have gone, but in 2021, it would be the 40th anniversary. But 5 years before that, which my maths is really terrible, I wanted to find a way to collaborate with the community to make something happen for the 40th anniversary in 2021. So essentially what I did, I spoke to a colleague of mine, Chloe Osborne, and she's another creative artist. And we started to have discussions early 5 years ago to talk about the uprisings and what it could mean for Brixton. And we spent 2-3 years having meetings with local people and building power from the ground in terms of sharing our vision and mission for this project. And it felt like that the people that we spoke to, they equally had their own ideas on how this this commemorative event could take place. And so everyone we spoke to had their own kind of way of how they could involve themselves in this amazing project, which was called 81 Acts of Exuberant Defiance. And at that time, I felt it was important to reach out on a more wider scope beyond Brixton to involve other people. And at that time, obviously, I was doing work with border crossings. And so it felt to me that because I'd known Michael, I felt that at the very least, I want to have a conversation with him about this project that was being developed in Brixton. So I remember speaking with Michael and going to meet with him and talking, and myself and Chloe met with him, and he was very excited about finding a way to be involved in the project. And you know, as the time went on, we collaborated together to find the funding to do something for 81 Acts of Exuberant Defiance. And what it turned out to be was that an artist, Jessie Lloyd, was going to come from Australia and share her practice in correlation to what happens in Brixton. So the part I think was the connection was that in Brixton we have a very strong storytelling tradition of music and places in Brixton. And so we wanted to find a way for Jessie Lloyd to share her way of storytelling through music and how that could correlate to the people of Brixton if they looked at where important places in Brixton meant to them through song. And so Michael was able to get in touch with Jessie Lloyd. A funding application was written and it was successful. And essentially we brought together a team of people that were gonna bring this project to life. Thor, McIntyre, was also involved in the project because he was crucially involved in the recordings of the sound and music around the SONGSTREETS project. But essentially, Jessie came and she spoke to quite a lot of different people in Brixton that we had set up workshops with her and the community. And these people in the community were able to meet Jessie and talk about their experiences of Brixton. And Jessie was able to share how she creates music from the song lines that she uses from her ancestral knowledge. And essentially what I understood what was happening was that people from Brixton were able to work with Jessie to make some recordings of music, which led to a Songlines app being created in Brixton. And that Songlines app essentially is a way where one would travel, say, from outside Brixton police station or Brixton tube station, and you would then follow the map around Brixton where it would take you to various crucial points where incidents happened in the 1981 Brixton uprisings, and listen to people's experiences at that time of what had happened. So it's like a navigation through storytelling and music and places in the community that had significant relevance to the 1981 Brixton uprisings.
My only question in here is that, did you took this type of route because of COVID, or 5 years before COVID, would you have thought of the same approach to revitalize, let's say, these parts of Brixton, or would you have done it in a different way, you think?
Yeah, I think going back and reflecting back, we didn't know, no one knew that the world was going to go upside down in March 2020. And when it did, yeah, we had to rethink and reimagine how the project could be brought to life. And it was something that we just had to plan and reshape. We obviously had planned it for a real in-person physical operation where, you know, people would be able to meet in person and collaborate together. But when COVID hit, it did change the way that the project was going to roll out. But luckily, you know, we gave it time, and we were still able to kind of work in between those moments where it was okay to be in person, but obviously wearing a mask, or, you know, your distance was part of the experience. But looking back, reflecting back, we definitely didn't plan for COVID, and we didn't plan that the project would have an impact in that way on us. But you know, we were really passionate. We knew that we wanted to, we couldn't stop this moment of 2021 coming. You know, when you've got a date in mind in the future, you can't change the date and you know, because something has happened, the date's gonna come. So we had to work towards that date. No matter what was gonna happen, we had to come up with an idea for how we're going to navigate through it, which we did.
Well, that shows what you said also about obstacles, where you know how to fight with obstacles.
Yeah. I mean, you have to kind of think, how else can we reimagine this project? And yeah, I think a lot of people, particularly us, we thought about that and persevered and made it happen the same way, which I'm very grateful for.
I'm also curious about how did it go? For example, your friends in Brixton or your family, what did they think about it? Was it difficult for you also to talk about certain things or remember certain parts when you were going through the streets and?
I don't think it was kind of difficult. I think for me, it was more that it was about remembering things that I hadn't really thought about previously. So really going on the journey and delivering the project and navigating all of the ups and downs, it made me much more aware of the people and places in Brixton. So, you know, friends and family were really excited with the project because nothing like this had ever been done before. And so it was an opportunity for people who had a connection to 1981 to have their say. So for me, it felt like it was much more of a way to bring people together and share with friends, family, but also strangers, because when we did the original consultation with the community, there were so many different people who had different perspectives about this event. For example, people whose lives were ruined and spoilt because of the uprisings, houses being burnt down, businesses being burnt down. So when you look at it in that way, where those types of people who had to relocate, move out the area, whether they were compensated or not, their experiences are crucial and vitally important in this narrative, because they're the ones who experienced a different side of the 1981 Brixton uprisings. So for me, it felt like we were really trying to get a 360 perspective on everybody who was involved in that experience. And that, for me, again, is another way of how you can bring people together across difference to have a conversation about one incident that people are involved in from a different perspective. And it's about learning and how we can find a way to heal ourselves through this and build bridges for the future.
I agree. And also, when it comes to SONGSTREETS, I think it's not, this is my opinion, but I would like you to talk about it, because it's not only the uprising, right? There is a bit of a build-up when it comes to talking about the Windrush generation and a bit how people were deceived because of the idea of what they were thinking, what was going to happen once they were here, and after those things didn't really happen. So would you say that you kind of started showing us the struggle from that very point? Is it a reason why you thought that, instead of just focusing on the uprising? What do you think about that?
I think
there is like a timeline in there, right?
Yeah, the timeline goes back, I mean, as before I was born. So if we look at the early 50s and 60s, we just take a look at how the carnival was started. So the carnival was started because Kelson Cochrane, he was murdered by fascists in West London, and they wanted to find a way to celebrate and commemorate all of the trouble at that time, not only his fatal incident, but moreover lots of people who had experienced injustice from white fascist groups in London. And so they put on an event at the town hall in Kensington and inviting the local community to come and talk about their culture and what they had experienced. And that event was a way for people to learn from each other. But it got so popular that each year they wanted to kind of continue to do this event to honor people who had fallen. And every year they were doing this event at the West Kensington Town Hall. It just grew and grew, and so there came a point where they couldn't hold the event inside the hall no more, and they had to then take it out onto the streets. And then they started to design a little sort of march area where they would promenade around the local area to show the culture, showed off the people, the music, and have these conversations about the area and what needs to change. And that just grew and grew every year, and it just got bigger and bigger, and it became, you know, more a mile and 2 miles, and then it was 5 miles. And then if you look at Carnival today, that's the seed that was born. So in terms of when you look at SONGSTREETS in Brixton, yes, we have the Windrush generation, which is significant specifically to South London, because many Windrush people landed all over the UK, but specifically in London, where they landed more in Clapham and Brixton, because those were the places where the labour exchange was located, and the labour exchange enabled people from that generation to get work, you know, seek employment. So it was through Brixton and Clapham that people would hang out and form families and communities in Brixton. My mum, being one of the Windrush generation people, always told me stories of when she arrived. You know, she worked during the day, and when she came home in the evening, there would be other families in the same room as us, all experiencing their own lives. And so there was like 3 or 4 families all living in one room. And looking back at the Windrush generation, so they were real pioneers to overcome lots of tribulation and trouble, particularly around the injustice that they had faced with racism, housing, employment, but also at the same time that year, in 1948, the National Health Service was launched at the same time. So you have the Windrush generation and you have the National Health Service. And I think in terms of trying to look at a timeline, I think SONGSTREETS is a wonderful way to really enable people to go into these stories of what their experiences was, in specifically looking at Brixton and how Brixton has changed today compared to what it was beforehand. I think the Songlines project will enable anybody to really hear quite deeply, you know, what people's experiences were of Brixton at a time when there was civil unrest all throughout the up and down the country in different cities, but specifically in Brixton, where the 1981 uprisings took place.
Thank you. And also, lastly, to mention this also, it's quite powerful when it comes to SONGSTREETS to finish where the statue of Tate is. I was wondering if Black Lives Matters did also help out with the project, or it was something that was apart for you, or did you kind of involve yourself in anything like that, or?
So, yeah, that was really interesting, because at the time, after the pandemic, when George Floyd had got murdered, and certainly here in London and across the UK, the Black Lives Matter movement came about. I don't think there is, personally, there's not a strong connection between myself and Black Lives Matter, because I personally hadn't got involved in any of the Black Lives Matter movements. But there is obviously a correlation to what you're finding is, you know, in Brixton, where we have the statue of Marcia Rigg, which is right outside the police station. And there's a correlation there between what had happened to George Floyd, got murdered by police. And there are many, many, many people in the UK going back from probably the 50s, early 60s, if not before, that had been murdered by the hands of the police. So to kind of think about what Black Lives Matter has done powerfully in this country to raise the awareness and campaign against the injustice, there is this correlation to what Songlines has also equally done in Brixton, to place the statue directly outside Brixton Police Station, as if Marcia's own words are to say, you know, we are speaking to these people here and we want them to know. And so I think to commemorate Marcia's statue outside the Brixton Police Station in relation to Black Lives Matter is a beautiful way to show the power of connection, power of community, and to show that, you know, together we are stronger to fight against injustice.
Thank you. And would you like to share with us your involvements now in theater, or, you know, your kind of your job now? Like, in which
Sure.
projects are you involved now, for example?
So, wow.
A lot, right? Choose one.
So yeah, I'm always proud of one of my volunteer projects. The Black Men's Consortium is a user-led group in Brixton, and it's an intergenerational group of men that meet every Monday to find connection, to be emotionally held by others, and to find a way to improve their mental health and well-being through the performing arts. And so they make performances that are about some kind of injustice that they experience. And 7 years ago, I was asked to make a performance about why there are high rates of black and brown men committing suicide in Lambeth. And I rose to the challenge and worked with a group of about 43 men for a couple of months, and we put on a performance. But it was really after the performance that I realized that all of what these men had been sharing with me for the last couple of months was so powerful, so deep, so insightful, that I needed to find a way to continue to do this project. And luckily I spoke to some partners in Lambeth, a adult day centre called Mosaic Clubhouse, and they supported me to keep the project going at their venue. And 7 years later, we are still at that venue, still meeting, still collaborating and using theatre for social change. And that's a real powerful project that has seen hundreds and hundreds of men come through that door to find connection and, yeah, to tell their story collaboratively together with others around the challenges that they're facing in their lives. And I'm really proud of that project. Why? Because I think, like I said, it's user-led, everyone's a volunteer, and we find ways to bring out our experiences and through the performing arts and the creativity, and find that healing and connection which enables us to kind of get stronger every day to continue the work that we want to do.
Thank you very, very much, Tony, for sharing with us your involvement, obviously, with border crossings, but also to show us that how you actually use theatre as a mechanism or tool to make sure that communities are heard is really powerful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure of doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.